I think this is the perfect handover into our final part that we call the critical outro. So what's a critical outro?
So there's a group of people that's called the Critical Friends Collective, a think tank working on really making our economy, our world a better place. And they'll now critically evaluate this conference and hopefully also give us new perspectives. So I kindly ask the Critical Friends onto the stage. Applause, please. So, before you start right away, I will introduce you, and maybe you can just give us a hand rise so everyone knows who you are. So I start with you, Hannes Matt. You are the ecologist being represented in this critical outro. Then we have Anna Goldhofer, the realist, being represented. Andrea Schneller, the transformer, and Benedikt the visionary. Let's go.
Thank you very much for this lovely intro. So, as you heard, I have the role of the ecologist reflecting on the conference. And so my perspective represents the environment and the need for true ecological sustainability. And I brought a simple threefold argument that is, looking at the state of our planet, circular economy must lead our economy into a truly sustainable future. Secondly, unfortunately, it doesn't. It's lagging behind this promise. And the third part of the argument is, why is that important for us? It's important for us because we, as impact entrepreneurs and sustainability advocates, we have to take responsibility. Responsibility that the ideas we stand behind actually lead to the sustainable futures we're trying to build. So, as an ecologist, it's kind of easy. Circular economy promises to lead our economy into a truly sustainable future. What does truly sustainable mean? It means that our economy has to stay within the planetary boundaries. We shall not exceed the carrying capacity of our planet. The problem with circular economy, though, is that our political strategies to achieve circularity are not enough to hold to this promise. I'll give you an example. The EU measures their success in circularity in the circular material use rate. This use rate has basically been stagnant for the last 20 years. Nevertheless, the communicated goal of the EU is to double it until 2030. This goal is simply out of reach. Thinking back of yesterday's Munich Circularity Gap Report, we saw that even if Munich gets it done, that its 5 highest impact sectors, construction, consumer goods, and so on, get 100% circular, the average material footprint of everybody living in Munich is still by a factor of 2 higher than what we would actually need to be within planetary boundaries. This is because as our economy grows, our secondary use rate of materials must grow faster than that, and there is simply no sign that we can achieve that. And I think the problem as the core is that our whole sustainability transformation strategy is built on the idea of green growth. And circular economy plays an enormous role within the strategy of green growth because its task is to decouple material use from growth. This is called decoupling. The problem with decoupling, though, is that the scientific consensus says that there is no evidence for it. It hasn't worked in the past, and there are no good signs that it will work in the future. So there are many studies on that. I just brought one study with me from 2016 that says growth in GDP ultimately cannot be decoupled from growth in material and energy use. It is therefore misleading to develop policy around the expectation of decoupling. The last part of my argument is, why is that important to us? It is important because ideas that carry inconsistencies within them tend to be instrumentalized. Because, everybody can come, present a circular economy strategy, and then use it for saying and framing themselves as truly sustainable. And that's a problem for impact entrepreneurs and sustainability advocates, as I think most of you consider themselves as, because we do not want to echo ideas that are being instrumentalized. We don't want to become symbols of those ideas. What we want is to being able to truly stand behind those ideas and foster only what leads us and our businesses and the world to a truly better place. I would say, therefore, it is kind of our responsibility to be more political and to be more critical with our political strategies, especially in the context of circular economy. It is our responsibility to point out these inconsistencies within those strategies and to make them better. That is for us, so that we can feel good about ourselves and what we're doing and having the feeling that we're part of something that works. It's important for the truthfulness of our businesses, and of course, it's very important to achieve the global goal of a truly sustainable future. So my point would be, let's be critical, let's point out these inconsistencies, and let's design a circular economy paradigm that we can 100% stand behind. So with that, I am handing over to our second perspective, Anna, the realist.
Yes, so I'm speaking as the realist because I take the view of industries, of different industries, different companies, and what we hear also on this festival when looking at the collaboration with different startups. And I brought three things with me that I think are worth highlighting. First, reduction is not enough. We see that many companies and many industries have reduction goals. Very often we talk about the reduction of waste, the reduction of the CO2 footprint, the reduction of primary materials. And mostly those reductions the goals are percentages. So 40% secondary material rate, 50% less CO2. The problem with that is that if you have 40% secondary material, you still have 60% primary material that no one points out. Also, we've heard that economies still grow, and actually our economies worldwide are supposed to double. Also the growth, material use and all that comes with it, supposed to double in the next 18 years. And we've also seen it in the Circularity Gap report. Not the one of Munich, but the worldwide one says that we're actually lowering in the numbers of how circular we are. We're coming from 9 to now 7%. And that's not because circularity activities are decreasing. It's because the economic growth is growing faster than any circularity approach. So if we have reduction goals in percentages, but the economy still grows, then it basically gets eaten up and we're not doing much for the planet. So I think that's a big criticism. So what needs to be done is absolute numbers, to measure in absolute numbers, and to also not pause when having goals that are not 100%. And also I think one of the reduction things that we should actually talk about, but no one talks about, is actually reducing products. Actually reducing how much we consume, actually reducing maybe the growth that we're aiming at. And of course that needs big system change because our capitalism doesn't work like this, but this is basically what needs to be done and talked about more, I think. So coming from not only doing less harm by reducing to actually doing good, to actually enabling and creating an economy, a circular economy that's not only less bad, but actually good. So the second thing, that was the reducing part. The second thing I want to talk about is new partnerships. And I think this festival is a great opportunity for that because we have so many startups here and so many also new partnerships, and the whole Circular Republic environment brings together companies and startups. So that's a great thing, but we need to be honest also. Big companies need new partners, not only startups, of course startups, but also recycling companies to really get into circular supply chains. But what I really see is there is dialogue, yes, and there are platforms where that are used to talk about this, but are there real partnerships? are companies really partnering up with startups, with recyclers, to not only talk about it and get an understanding, but to actually partner with it, and by partnering also like letting, by partnerships also enabling innovation and better techniques in recycling at the recyclers. So I think this needs to be looked at critical because, is there really only dialogues or is there actual outcome in those partnerships? And the third thing I want to highlight is regulations. We've talked about a lot about, or we heard a lot about regulations, the EU Green Deal, and we also see that a lot of companies actually have a hard time fulfilling those regulations, and it's usually causing more panic or it's really disturbing. So we also see that, yes, regulations, I think most people think they're necessary, but most companies actually tackle them, try to lobby against them. So this is, I think, the realistic thing and needs to be looked at if this is actually what we should do or whether we should more embrace them and work with them. And the second thing is that, is being compliant to regulations really enough? Or is it maybe only the baseline? And the baseline, yes. And I also see that many industries actually look at those regulations and say, okay, do I even need my own targets now that I'm actually already having a hard time fulfilling the regulations? And I just want to emphasize that regulations can only be the baseline. We must go way beyond that. Yes. So to sum that up, I think first, realistically, I see lots of reduction goals in percentage, but that's not enough. Less harm is not good enough. We need to actually do good. Second, I see lots of dialogue, but not real partnerships on eye level that really also enable investments. And third, I think that regulations must be seen as regulations tend to be very ambitious, and they must be seen only as the baseline to jump off from. And in summary, circular economy is not a buzzword, and my generation really needs you to be active and brave, and especially when times get rough. But that's only my very realistic point of view. Andrea, you're working on the transformation. Maybe you got something more positive about it.
Yeah, let's see. So I'm taking the Transformers perspective, and I'd like to start with a question to you. What kind of transformation do you want to see? And for me, there are two options that we have right now. It's transformation by design or by disaster. And we can decide what do we want to have. Like, it will happen anyways. We can see it everywhere. But right now, we do have the chance to design the transformation. And I think that's a huge challenge, but also a huge chance. And I'd like to point out this topic with two phrases that I brought to you. First of all, I think part of the topic that we have is we cannot solve the problems by using the same kind of thinking that created them. I guess you might know that's from Einstein, the phrase. And I'd like even to add, it's not only the same thinking, but also the same acting. We have to start acting in a different way, not just doing what we always did in a little better way or a little different way, but we have to really pause and to rethink how can we really do things completely differently, because that's what's needed, and that's what also the character of a transformation is. And therefore, I feel also looking at the festival that we have, I guess maybe all of you can relate to me. I'm super energized. Like, I love this community here. I've met so many great people, and still we have to recognize this is a bubble. We are in a bubble here, a circular economy bubble of people who have understood what we need to do, but still this is not enough. We have to go out. We have to get broader. We have to do more here, and I think that's the important part. I think to do this, we have to be courageous, to speak up, to talk about things that might not work yet, and to really take others with us. So I can just encourage everyone to really understand yourselves as early adopters, so try out the new solutions. As innovators, of course, take what you have like into your companies and start innovating. Let's have more, we talk a lot about like we have a lot of think tanks. Let's have more do tanks. Let's start acting and being courageous in terms of trying things out. I think that's the important part. And that also leads me to the second part and the second phrase I brought with me. And this, I heard it last week actually in the keynote and really stuck to me. It's saying, it's not about saving the planet, it's about saving us as humanity. The planet doesn't care like if we screw that up. The planet will be there after we're just extinct. And therefore, this is, I think, a super important part. It's about us. And that means, and I feel this is also something that has been around like the last 2 days, we're all here, so we're humans. We've been talking a lot about technologies, about regulations that might save us, about certain things that will push us. But in the end, what is all of this about? It's about us as humans. We are creating the solutions. We are creating the regulations. We are creating everything that is happening there. And I do believe that we need to reconsider more the human side of our economy and of things that are happening. And therefore, I really believe that it's, to some extent, not so much about technology, but more about the value that is created. It's more about the connections we make and more about the people we bring together and the communities that come together. And I think we already have here a great community, but as I said, we need to extend that. And to summarize that, I do believe it's about leadership. We all have to be leaders in terms of creating that transformation that we want to see. And what does leadership mean? It means to also take the uncomfortable decisions, to also talk about the topic that might be, as Hannes pointed out, the things that are not really fitting together yet, because it's the nice narratives, but they're not really working out. And therefore, I can really just give to you as an impulse, and really hope everyone is taking it, let's take it beyond the bubble, let's really be courageous, and let's be the leaders that are needed for transformation. So, with that, giving to the visionary.
Yes, thanks. I have the honor of playing the visionary today and answering maybe a question of what are we transforming to. Now, the problem with the visions right now, and I think that is also something maybe a lot of us feel and see, is they are kind of restricted to our status quo. We try to use the same tools that have always fit our status quo and our current kind of economic systems to solve wicked problems that we hardly really understand and know about. And by doing so, we really stick to mainly efficiency as a solution of these issues. And efficiency means basically reducing and restricting our impact on this world, underlying always the conviction that we are inherently and unchangeably detrimental to nature and to the environment. So basically what we are trying to doing is to encapsulate us as human beings, as the economy that we are, from the rest of the world, and we try to restrict our impact. How sad is that? How sad is that we are so convinced of us being bad to this world that we try to just rather not have an impact on this world instead of doing something good. So I think we have to step out of this box. We have to think what is effective, what are true solutions, and start doing that. Now, I want to shed some light, especially on 2 points. And one of them is the notion of resources. And the other one will be a rethinking of business models and ownership. Now, resource, the term to start off, is a very human thing. Nature does not know resources. There's not a stock of resources that is just there to be used up by a pile of ants and consumed, and that's it, and then there's waste. No, nature only knows nutrients. And I think if we started thinking and acting more like the hill of ants or the community of ants, and we started to see basically all the materials that are provided around us as a nutrient, then we would change from consuming to metabolizing. And that basically means that all the material that is input to our socioeconomic metabolism is actually just after being metabolized, made available for the next kind of circle of metabolism. So that's what a true circular economy is about, not consumption, but metabolizing. Also, there's like more than 1 million individual ants per human being, per individual. And ants are only and exclusively beneficial to the environmental system. So I think numbers is not always a valid argument. So the second thing now is business models and ownership. Now, when I buy my phone, I of course get the service of using the phone, and I can send my emails and whatever. But also I buy a few grams of gold, a few grams of lithium, a few grams of glass and aluminum. And sometimes I'm just there and look at it, and I'm just flabbergasted. Like, I don't know what to do with it. Like, why do I, as an individual, have to kind of have to bury the burden, bear the burden of all these materials? I don't need my washing machine. I just want clean clothes. And I think the allocation of material and nutrients in that sense, at my position of end consumer, is very ineffective in a way. So if now I just get access to my washing machine, if I can just enjoy the service of having clean clothes, what does that mean? That means that basically the provider of my washing machine would retain ownership of the materials. There is an incentive for using higher quality materials, for integrating recycling capabilities, for designing for recycling and disassembly in the end, and for closing the cycles, for designing reverse supply chains, and so on. And by the way, it's also great for geopolitical resilience to have these very important materials circling kind of locally. Yes. So let's draw a vision, a critical friend's vision of a beautiful economy where we can actually celebrate us being human and our impact, where our footprints fill up with water, and then more and more species arrive, and it actually becomes a biotope. And wherever we leave that footprint, we create more abundance and vibrant life. So we should start to have more of these footprints in the end. Let's build cities that act like forests, where the air is cleaned and where every single house is basically not a house only for us, but a house for all nature. So I think a livable and beautiful vision of the future is one where we reconcile with nature and not try to encapsulate us, where we actually try to find the effective solutions. Now I like to end this with a quote from, it's freely translated, from Theodor Adorno, which is, there is no right life in the wrong, right? So it's not just us end consumers. It's not just us producers. It's all of us together in a system. And as long as the system is kind of wrong, it's very, very hard to live a morally right life as far as that is possible. So I think we should start moving this system together. We should be brave, we should be bold, and we should start create a future that I'm and we hopefully are really looking forward to live in, instead of one that is just kind of a cell of a prison that we build ourselves on this planet. Thanks a lot for listening, and
Thank you. Thanks.